You know, yeah, tasawwuf as a science is one of the 12 sciences that Ibn Juzay al-Kalbi in the Muqaddimah of his Tasheel, and he's a agreed upon scholar of tafsir. There's nobody that rejects him in the Sunni tradition as one of the great mufassirun. His book's used in Medina University. He said that tasawwuf is one of the 12 sciences that people have to know, because he said the Quran lahu ta'alluqun bit-tasawwuf. So, and then he actually has a book on which I taught in Medina called Tasfiyat al-Qulub, the refinement of the hearts, about the tasawwuf of Quran. So that's part of our tradition, which is tazkiyah of the nafs, but obviously, you know, the madhab of the people of tasawwuf is there are different groups, and you have what are called turuq, because turuq is not equated with tasawwuf. I mean, there's some people that will equate it with tasawwuf, but there are people that historically had no turuq, and yet they were part of the community of tasawwuf. Ash-Shatibi says in the I'tisam that he says that the first people were called Sahaba, and then the people that followed them were called Tabi'un, and then the people that followed them were called Tabi'in. And then he said after that, it would have been cumbersome to say Tabi'in. So they needed a word to describe the people that were on the behavior of the first community, so they called them Sufiya. And so in the early part of Islam, the Sufiya were actually seen as like the real adherents to the traditional way. Hasan al-Basri said that التصوف كان التصوف اسما حقيقة بلا مسمى والآن أصبح مسمى بلا حقيقة. So already during the Tabi'in, he's saying it was a reality without a name. Now it's a name without a reality. Now he was obviously exaggerating, but the ulama have always decried the fact that tasawwuf was waning and the Sufis were watered down. And then they distinguished between the Sufiya and the Mutasawwifa. The Mutasawwifa were people that imitated the Sufiya, but weren't really practicing what they practiced. Imam Malik was asked about a people يأكلون كثيرا ثم ينشدون في القصائد ثم يرقصون. You know, he said they ate a lot, then they would recite qasidas, and then they would dance. And he said, "A Muslimun hum? You know, are they Muslims?" And he said, "This isn't tartib al-madarik." He said, and they said they call themselves Sufis. He said, "A Muslimun hum?" قال نعم. قال الصبيان hum? Are they children? He said, لا فيهم شيوخ. He said, amongst them are sheikhs. And in Qad Iyad said in the riwayah that Imam Malik ضحك ضحكا شديدا, and he laughed very hard, and then he got up and he just walked out. And somebody that was in the gathering said, "You really disturbed the Imam, because I've been sitting in this majlis for 20 years, I never saw him laugh." You know, and they say sharul bariya yudhik, you know, the worst types of tribulation make people laugh. So it obviously bothered Imam Malik, you know, so, you know, and you'll find like Tarbisu Ibris, Ibn al-Jawzi wrote against the people of Tasawwuf at his time. But Ibn al-Jawzi himself was a man of Tasawwuf, so it's, you know, and the ulama will go to extremes when they see the community at extremes. But, you know, Imam al-Ghazali, radiallahu anhu, he really kind of answered the question for the majority of Muslims in the Ihya, bridging the outward and the inward, that sound tasawwuf is based on sound aqidah and sound fiqh. The statement that Ibn Ajiba attributes to Imam Malik in the Sharh of the Hikam, when he says, "Man tasawwafa, man tafaqaha wa lam yatasawwaf, faqad tafassaq, wa man tasawwaf wa lam yatafaqqa, faqad tazandaq, wa man jama'a baynahuma, faqad tahaqqaq." The people that learn fiqh but don't learn tasawwuf, in other words, purification of the heart, they become fasiq, you know, like a profligate or a reprobate. And the people that learn tasawwuf and don't learn fiqh, they become heretic. And the people that join it too, they have realization. And Imam Shafi'i in his Diwan, and it's a sound attribution to Imam Shafi'i, he said, كن فقيها وصوفيا وليس واحدا فإني وحقي إياك أنصحه. Be a faqih and a Sufi, but not one without the other. And I'm giving you good advice about this. And he also said, تعلمت من الصوفية أمرين. I learned from the Sufis two things. I learned الوقت كالسيف إن لم تقطع به قطعك ونفسك إن لم تشغلها بخير شغلتك في الشر. I mean, that's all you need to know, really. He said, time is a sword. If you don't cut with it, it cuts you down. And your soul, your ego, if you don't preoccupy it in good, it will preoccupy you with evil. You know, so, and then Bishr al-Hafi, who was amongst the Sufiya, used to visit Ahmed. And when he left one day, one of the people in the gathering said, "Ilmuhu qalil." You know, he doesn't have a lot of knowledge. In other words, outward knowledge, because these were great scholars. And Ahmed said, "Wayhaka, you know, watch out." He said, وَهَلَ الْعِلْمِ يُتَعَلَمْ إِلَّا لِمَا وَصَلَ إِلَيْهِ بِشْرٌ. Do you learn knowledge for anything other than what Bishr has arrived to? In other words, piety is is not having lots of knowledge. It's having, you know, taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, you know, tasawwuf is part of Islam. The Turuq historically played a very important role in the history of Islam and in spreading da'wah. I mean, anybody from the subcontinent, from India, knows the role of the Sufis in spreading Islam amongst the Hindus, amongst the Buddhists. It was the Sufis, you know, the Chistiya, and these different Naqshbandiya, all these different groups that used to go to places. The same is true. The Qadiriya spread Islam in Europe. The Bogomils were converted by Qadiri Sufis. Even Ibn Taymiyyah, in one of his books, says that the Sufiya played a major role in the spread of Islam. Like, he admits that. And Ibn Taymiyyah himself was a Qadiri. He followed the Qadiri tariqah, and that's been proven historically. So the idea somehow that these things were a bid'ah, no, they're madhab, just like you have Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Hanafi, and then you have Maturidi, Ash'ari, Athari. You also have madahib, and you have Shadiri, Naqshbandi, Qadiri. You have different spiritual paths for tazkiyah of nafs, and they do exercises and things for their students. So this was part of the Islamic tradition. Undeniably, a lot of innovation came in, a lot of problems, a lot of phony sheikhs, a lot of sheikhs that would inherit it from their father and then the grandson and which happens rarely in tasawwuf. Do you have a senate amongst the Sufiya where a son, the Wafas are the only ones in the Shadiri chain, where Ali Wafa and his son. That's very rare. So, you know, and then people know, if you're from Pakistan or India, about a lot of these peers that just, they manipulate people and take their money and write, you know, hijabs and things, and yafuk al-jadu, you know, sahar. They go and do things. And, you know, a lot of them, they're either deluded or they're charlatans. You know, it's as simple as that. And to deny that, I think you're just denying reality. I mean, there's people that want to just have a good opinion of all these people and things like that, but it's not true. Some of these people are really, they're not good people. And I've had run-ins with people like that. And we had a complete charlatan come to our community once, you know. And he was actually doing, as far as I can tell, he was doing some kind of jaddu on people himself, claiming that he was freeing them of jinn. And I mean, whenever you meet these people and say, "Oh, you've got some jinn problems, I can clear it out of your house," and stuff like that. None of the ulama that I've been around have ever talked about stuff like that. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, you know, I mean. And then the other thing is they're self-effacing. I mean, this whole idea of making claims is very problematic. You know, to make claims is a dangerous thing. I mean, some of the great awliya did, undeniably, but it's a very dangerous thing to make claims. So, you know, I mean, I would just be very careful about what's out there, but there are undeniably valid teachers out there. that do know tasawwuf. I'm not going to deny that. But I would just, my warning to you is be very, very